Look, I mentioned this National Reconstruction Fund. Like a year ago, it's sort of like the federal government wanting to pick winners to identify the sort of technologies and the industries of the future. And some countries do this quite well. I mean, Taiwan decades ago said computer chips are the future, every device will have them, and Taiwan makes like 70% of the world's computer chips, and it has a global strategic advantage in this. I question whether the Australian government is very well sort of situated to work out what technologies will drive the future and what will not. But they pick quantum computing, which is a new sort of super fast style of computing, and there's a firm based in Brisbane that is trying to design one. So I think the federal government's investing in that. They've picked solar panels. I have problems there. The Chinese make 90% of the world's solar panels. The idea that we can do a better job in Australia, I think, is, well, courageous. But they've also invested in Paddy's Foods, which makes 4 and 20 pies, and as revealed this morning, Arnott's, which makes Tim Tams. Our next guest is Chief Economist and Co-founder of Macro Business, Leith Van Onselen. Good morning.
Yeah, g'day, Tom.
Well, I suppose I can understand solar panels and quantum computing, but where does sort of pies and chocolate biscuits fit in with this sort of investing style?
Look, it doesn't, mate, to be quite honest. This is basically just some sort of, subsidy slush fund. The National Reconstruction Fund's a $15 billion slush fund set up by the federal government to basically support manufacturing. And the underlying problem we've got here, Tom, is that through policy failure, we've driven up the cost of energy in Australia. So that's through not regulating the gas market properly, as well as this whole renewables push. And that's basically made Australian manufacturing uncompetitive because manufacturers is the major user of electricity out of all Australian industry. It's most reliant on electricity and gas. And we've driven up the cost of that. So the federal government basically creates a problem, and then they try and paper over the problem through subsidies by supporting manufacturing who are hurt by these energy policies.
But see, the thing is here, I mean, Arnott's, in which we've invested $45 million, it's owned by, the buyout group Kohlberg Kravis Roberts. I mean, they're worth tens, if not hundreds of billions of dollars. And Paddy's Food are owned by a Hong Kong buyout firm. So, I mean, these businesses have plenty of money. I don't see why the Australian taxpayer has to subsidise them.
Absolutely, we shouldn't be subsidising them. But unfortunately, that's what we've got. And look, I wouldn't have as much issue with this fund if it was sort of providing seed capital to brand new industries and firms and that sort of thing. But these are old, established, industries that are owned by massive multinational conglomerates. And we just simply should not be providing money for this. But again, it gets back to the fact that through policy failure, we've driven up the cost of energy. And that's making all these types of firms that use a lot of energy less competitive.
But I mean,
the government solution then is to bail them out.
Yeah, but on that logic, I mean, there will be, particularly food businesses everywhere which, can't get cheap gas and struggle with the price of electricity. I mean, the so-called National Reconstruction Fund alone, bakers and yogurt makers and, all sorts of things.
Yeah, absolutely. But these, Paddy's Pies is obviously Gippsland. I'm not sure where this latest, where Arnott's is, but it's probably in a regional area. So I think there's a bit of that to go around as well. They're trying to boost the regions as well.
See, the thing is, I think you're a bit younger than me, but back in the early 90s, there was a state government version of this called the Victorian Equity Development Corporation, and they put money into one business venture was, surfboards that catered, only to female surfers, and there were various other things. It was an absolute disaster. Like everything they put money into did not work. This sounds like it's just sort of like a similar thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And the government has shown time and time again that it's very bad at picking winners. But unfortunately, here we are. I think the former productivity head, the long-term productivity head, Gary Banks, summed it up properly. He said basically the government has driven up the cost of energy. They've buried industry in regulation, and the solution is to provide subsidies instead of fixing the underlying problems. And that's the main issue here.
Right. So government policy has pushed up the price of gas and the price of power. That's going to put pie makers and chocolate biscuit makers out of business. So taxpayer funds will be pumped into those companies.
That's right. And so the solution is actually fix the problem rather than try and band-aid over it. And we've seen it also here with bill relief that was given to taxpayers. That was the paper over the cracks caused by failed policy.
All right. Well, thank you, Leith. Leith Van Onselen there, Chief Economist and Co-founder of Macro Business.